Okay guys, so reactions and recap to night 2 of Wrestlemania 37. First of all, we saw The Fiend versus Randy Orton. First of all, the entrance for The Fiend was very neat. There was literally a Jack-in-the-Box, really tall, there on the entrance ramp, and he had his original gear on from when he debuted the Fiend character. And Alexa Bliss literally took the crank, which was very big, and turned it until the Fiend basically popped up and came out of the Jack-in-the-Box. Now, I also want to mention that Randy Orton's attire looked really neat tonight as well. They went all out for this. So the ending of the match was not what I predicted, and actually most of my predictions were completely, totally wrong for the night, but that's okay. It was an okay match. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, technically speaking. But what ended up causing the end of the match was an unintentional, if you will, distraction by Alexa Bliss. She was sitting on top of the Jack-in-the-Box, and she had kind of like a crown type thing on her head almost, with this black oily stuff kind of running down her face. We don't know for sure if she's supposed to be the Sister Abigail character or not, the persona. I guess we'll find out as that story continues, maybe there. But I thought it still played out the storyline well. It was decent. We then saw Nia Jax and Shayna defend their title against Natalya and Tamina. This match, not necessarily great, but it was not bad either. The women did a good job with this. So Shayna and Nia ended up retaining their titles, but Natalya and Tamina gave it a very good shot. They really did. They made them look very strong still. So we then had Big E versus Apollo Crews in a Nigerian drum match. Basically what this was some drums and other instruments around the ring, and pretty much anything really goes. You could use weapons, all of that. The principle behind it, I guess, was to beat your opponent to a point like it sounds like drums. At one point, Biggie took a cymbal that was there, and he basically crashed that into Apollo Crews. Now, because this was kind of a no-holds-barred match, if you will, there was also no disqualifications. That's important to remember, because that is how Apollo Crews ended up winning the Intercontinental Championship tonight. It was through some interference by Dabba-Kato, who made his pay-per-view debut. If you'll remember, he was in some of the Raw Underground segments. And I don't think he actually had a match on Raw. But at any rate, he ended up helping Apollo Crews. I am perfectly okay with this. It was one of the few matches that I did predict right. I think Apollo Crews is going to be a great champion, especially with Dabba-Kato by his side. So we will see how that continues on, whether this propels Big E further up the card, what they end up doing with him. If they continue the storyline with Apollo, we'll see. We had also a match with Riddle versus Sheamus. This I knew was going to be a good match as well. These are two very talented men, Sheamus being a veteran. This ended up with Sheamus winning the United States Championship from Riddle. Riddle still looked very strong despite that, but you could definitely tell that Sheamus stood out as the veteran and he used those skills to showcase that. I don't know if this is the end of that feud or not. We will see. But it was a very good match. Let's now talk about Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. I want to say here that my prediction for this was wrong, because I did not think that there was going to be a clean finish to this. However, there was, and it did end up being Kevin Owens. This match did not deliver as well as I thought it was going to, technically speaking. It was still a decent match, but not nearly as good as I thought it could be. It wasn't, I guess, quite as even hard-hitting necessarily as I thought it was going to be, but it was still very decent. Now, after the match, we had Logan Paul come into the ring, and he went to check on Sami, which Sami was okay with that. However, after finding out that Sami was fine, Logan Paul then went over to basically shake hands with Kevin Owens and congratulate him on winning the match. Sami did not care for this. He basically turned on Logan Paul and said, "You're supposed to be my guest. What are you doing?" After Logan Paul basically threw Sami out of the ring, Logan Paul tried to raise Kevin Owens. He raised Kevin Owens' hand, and Kevin Owens just kind of looked at him, kind of, "What are you doing?" At which point then he pretended to maybe go in for a hug and ended up stunning Logan Paul. And that was a very nice touch. We'll see if they continue to use Logan Paul or not. I don't know. At this point, I want to just say that there were several occasions with Bayley throughout both nights trying to make her name known through what is her show. Ding dong, hello. And I felt like it got her on TV, and it reminded people that she was there and that she is still relevant. Tonight, I enjoyed her segments with the Hall of Famers. I thought it was good seeing the frustration that she was starting to feel, basically being brushed off by these Hall of Famers. That frustration really showed when she actually came out to the stage when, just before the main event, when Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil came out to basically kind of introduce the main event. And she was giving the Hall of Famers a bad time, at which point she was interrupted by the Bella Twins, Hall of Famers now, and they basically threw her down the entrance ramp and threw her off the ramp and got her out of there. I thought that had a very nice touch, and it gave her something to do and got her on WrestleMania. Maybe not in a match, but she still was there. We still saw her. Then we have Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. This was a decent match. Again, I don't think it was as good as it could have been, but it was a decent match. I still enjoyed it. They both looked very decent. Their ring attire was nice. I will say that I didn't necessarily care for Rhea Ripley's entrance music. It was a live performance for her, and I just didn't care for it. It didn't connect. It was her music, but you could definitely tell that she was not on key. Like, the pitch was wrong. It just did not sound very good. The match was decent. I Was kind of surprised that they did decide to put the title on Rhea. With that being said, I think that there could be a plan to continue the feud with her and Charlotte at this point, because Charlotte's ready to come back, and she was before WrestleMania even was here, but I don't think they had a way to really build up the feud at that point, so that's fine. But that could be what they end up doing. Again, as I said in my prediction video, I don't see anything else really making sense for Rhea. But we'll see what they decide to do with that. They could continue with Asuka. We'll see. Then we had the main event match. And that was Roman Reigns defending against Edge and Daniel Bryan. My pick had been Edge. I really did not see Roman Reigns retaining. He did. This was a hard-hitting affair. I honestly thought that it delivered a little bit more than I thought it was going to. There were several concertos involved. There was several spears. I thought there were several places where you didn't really think someone was going to be able to kick out, but they did. I just thought overall it was a good match. Once again, Jey Uso got involved. It's making me not like him very much, but that's because he is a heel. And that's because he's doing heel things. So I meant to hate him. But he's definitely getting over the way he's supposed to. So I'm okay with that. There could be a case made for technically Edge covering Bryan as opposed to Roman covering both. We'll see where they decide to go with that storyline. It's a possibility, but we'll have to see Friday what they do with that, if they even address that. It's hard to say. But that is my recap and my reactions to WrestleMania Night 2.